A young woman sits before a wall of monitors, her fingers flying across the keyboard as stock charts flicker in her eyes. A confident smile touches her lips as she leans back, victorious. Suddenly, an older woman and a woman in a red dress enter. The young woman's expression instantly shifts. She begins to giggle and clap her hands like a child. The two women look down on her with pure contempt. The woman in red sneers, her words dripping with scorn. The young woman just laughs louder, pointing at the complex graphs as if they were simple drawings. The older woman's face hardens. She points a commanding finger at the girl. The scene changes. The young woman is in a car, being violently shaken and screamed at by the other two. They shove her out of the door, throwing her onto the cold, dark pavement. The car speeds off, leaving her abandoned in the falling snow. She looks up in despair, when a man in a suit holding an umbrella suddenly stands over her. She stares up at him, stunned. Back in the room, the woman in red complains to her mother, explaining that the wealthy man she was supposed to marry is now blind and has lost his inheritance. The mother consoles her, agreeing that such a man is only fit for the foolish girl. The mother turns to the young woman, her face cold and threatening, as she gives a final order. The two women leave. The moment the door closes, the young woman's foolish facade drops. Her eyes turn sharp and cold, filled with a deep-seated rage. A man in a suit sits before a go board, his expression unreadable. An assistant enters, delivering a report. The man listens intently, his brow furrowed. He picks up a game piece, a flicker of annoyance on his face as he places it on the board. He dismisses the assistant's suggestion with a wave of his hand. A cold, calculating look in his eyes. The scene shifts. The young woman, now a bride in a white dress, is being led into a room. She acts like an excited child, pointing and laughing. A housekeeper tries to calm her, then leaves her alone. The moment the door closes, the bride's childish act vanishes. Her face becomes serious, her eyes sharp. She walks across the room and picks up a framed photo of the man, staring at it with a complex expression. Suddenly, the man is standing right behind her. She gasps, dropping the photo in shock. He looks at her, his eyes narrowed. A memory flashes in his mind, a different girl in a school uniform. A girl with a heart-shaped mark on her wrist. He looks at the bride's arm. There's no mark. His suspicion grows. He grabs her wrist, his grip tightening as he demands answers. The bride's eyes widen in alarm as she realizes he can see. He's not blind. He glares at her, his voice low and threatening, demanding to know who she really is. She suddenly bursts into tears, her voice cracking as she cries out in pain. She begins to hit him, calling him a bad man. He shouts back, his patience gone. She dissolves into sobs, her act of a frightened child completely convincing. He watches her, his suspicion slowly fading. He releases her, convinced she is truly simple-minded. She continues to cry and struggle, her act unwavering. He loses his balance, and they fall onto the bed together. She stares up at him, her eyes wide. She starts laughing, pulling at his clothes with childish glee. He looks down at her in disgust, then yanks his pants away from her grasp. He gives her a final stern warning before turning and storming out of the room. The moment he's gone, the bride sits up, her act dropping instantly. A wave of relief washes over her. The next morning, a housekeeper tries to wake the bride, who rolls over, whining and refusing to get up. But when the housekeeper mentions a red envelope for a tea ceremony, the bride's eyes fly open. She sits up instantly, a greedy, childish smile on her face. Her husband enters the room, wearing dark sunglasses and carrying a white cane, observing her behavior with a hidden smirk. Later, she stands beside him in the living room, in front of an elderly man, the grandfather. She continues her act, clutching a teddy bear and giggling, even touching the grandfather's chin playfully. The grandfather's face is a mask of stone-cold fury. The husband remains coolly detached, placing the blame for this ridiculous situation squarely on his grandfather. The old man's anger boils over. He points a trembling finger and orders his grandson to the study. As they leave, the bride watches them go, a pout on her face. The housekeeper brings her the cup of tea intended for the ceremony. The bride takes it, and the moment she is alone, in the study, the grandfather slams his hand on the table, his face contorted with rage. He points an accusatory finger at his grandson, who stands calmly, unfazed by the old man's fury. The grandfather shouts, his voice trembling with anger. The grandson's face remains a mask of cool indifference, but his words are sharp and cutting, hitting the old man like a physical blow. The grandfather flinches, his anger momentarily replaced by a flicker of pain and guilt. He finally slumps in defeat, his shoulders sagging. The grandson watches him, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes before turning to leave. The scene shifts to the woman in red, lying in bed with a different man. The husband's younger brother. She complains that the grandfather still hasn't accepted her. The younger brother reassures her, his hands caressing her skin. He tells her that he needs her to trick the bride into giving up her shares in the company. A devious plan forming in his eyes, the woman smiles, a seductive and calculating look on her face as she agrees. The bride walks out of the bathroom and freezes, seeing her husband already in bed, reading a book. She gasps in shock. He looks up, his expression calm. Her surprise instantly melts into childish glee. She claps her hands, amazed that he got into the locked room. He dangles a key, his face unreadable. She scolds him playfully for entering without permission. He ignores her act, closing his book and ordering her to prepare his bath. She is taken aback, her mind racing. He reminds her that he's blind and needs her help. She hesitates for a moment. Then her foolish smile returns, and she agrees enthusiastically. He corrects her, his voice firm, telling her to call him husband. She giggles and repeats the word, then happily runs off to do as he says. The moment she is gone, his smile vanishes. The bride stands by the bathtub, clapping her hands and giggling as her husband tests the water. He glares at her, his voice dripping with annoyance. She has filled the tub with cold water. She giggles, explaining that's how she bathes her teddy bear. His expression softens slightly at her innocent explanation. She then calls him a fool for not knowing who her teddy bear is. He stares at her for a moment, then orders her out of the room. She pouts, then stomps away. He watches her go, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. The moment she is out of sight, the bride's childish act disappears. She then climbs into bed, hugging her teddy bear close. She pulls out her phone and checks a message, a satisfied smile on her face as she reads it. Her husband enters the room, but she is already fast asleep. He looks down at her, a gentle expression on his face. He takes the teddy bear from her arms, but as she sleeps, she reaches for him, pulling his arm close and murmuring her teddy bear's name. He looks down at her, a flicker of surprise and something else, something softer, in his eyes. The next morning, the bride wakes up with a scream, realizing her husband is still in bed beside her. She starts to cry, demanding to know where her teddy bear is. He calmly tells her to get up and help him dress. She throws a tantrum, hitting him and calling him a bad man. He grabs her wrist, his voice low and threatening. If she doesn't behave, she won't get any food. She immediately stops crying and agrees, a cheerful smile replacing her tears. In the closet, she holds up a brightly patterned shirt, her eyes gleaming with a mischievous plan to test if he's really blind. Back in the bedroom, she holds the shirt out to him. He asks if it's the white one. She plays along, her act of innocence unwavering. He sighs and tells her to help him change. As she leans in close, she whispers to herself, convinced that he truly is blind. Later, at the breakfast table, the housekeeper brings him a gift for the bride, a smartwatch. The bride's eyes light up with childish delight. He tells her she can use it to call him. As he gets up to leave, she continues to play with her new toy. The moment he's gone, her expression shifts. She takes a call, a look of surprise and intrigue on her face as she listens. The scene cuts to a young man in a suit, talking on the phone at an airport. The husband sits in his office wearing the flamboyant shirt his wife picked out. His assistant enters, trying to hide a smile. The husband explains that his wife chose the shirt, a hint of amusement in his own voice. The assistant then asks why he's suddenly taking over the company again. The husband's expression turns serious. He explains that he's doing it for the woman he loved, the one who died. He is determined to fulfill her dreams for the company. Later, the bride sits in a cafe looking elegant and composed. The young man from the airport approaches her, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. He calls her sister and asks why she's alive. She looks at him, her expression a mask of cool confusion, and denies knowing him. He stares at her, his mind reeling, convinced she is the woman he thought was dead. The young man stares at the bride, his mind reeling. He apologizes, explaining that she looks just like his sister. She cuts him off, her tone businesslike. He's stunned when she calls him by name. He realizes she is the mysterious boss he's been working for. She confirms his suspicions with a small smile. He tells her that the deal with the rival company is almost complete, but they are insisting on a face-to-face meeting. She agrees, a look of cool determination on her face. Later that night, she is in bed, singing a children's song and playing on her phone. Her husband watches her, a hint of a smile on his face. He takes the phone from her hand and sees a message about a meeting. She snatches it back, her eyes wide with alarm. She looks at him, a sudden suspicion dawning on her. He explains that he heard the message notification, but she's not convinced. A tense silence hanging between them, a forced smile on her face as her husband prepares to leave. The moment he's gone, their friendly facades drop. The woman in red begins to mock her words dripping with scorn. The bride's face remains a mask of innocence, but her mind is racing. She feigns a tantrum, crying and demanding to go to sleep. The mother tries to placate her, asking about the shares her husband gave her. The bride continues to cry, her act flawless. The father finally intervenes, telling them to let her rest. She runs from the room, a look of triumph in her eyes. Once outside, she drops the act, a cold smile on her face. The scene cuts to the young man from the airport, a look of utter shock on his face. The husband sits across from the young man in the cafe, his eyes wide with disbelief. He realizes that the rival company is actually the one he co-founded with the woman he loved. He explains their shared history to the young man, his voice thick with emotion. The young man listens, his expression a mixture of surprise and sympathy. He tries to tell the husband that his sister is still alive, but the husband cuts him off, his grief too raw. He insists that she died 5 years ago. The young man, seeing his pain, drops the subject and agrees to focus on business. He reveals that he is not the true boss of the company, but that she is on her way. Just then, the bride enters the cafe, on the phone with the young man. He waves to get her attention. She smiles and walks towards their table. As she approaches, she looks up and sees her husband. Her smile freezes and her eyes widen in utter shock. He stares back at her, his own expression a mirror of her disbelief, the world around them seeming to fall away. The bride stares at her husband, her mind racing. She's convinced he can't see her, but a seed of doubt has been planted. He stares back, his own mind in turmoil. He's supposed to be blind, but he can't let her know. The young man is about to reveal the bride's true identity, but she quickly sends him a text message, threatening to expose him if he says a word. He freezes, then quickly changes the subject, telling the husband that his boss is unable to make the meeting. The husband, relieved but still suspicious, agrees to reschedule and leaves. The bride watches him go, a look of relief on her face as he gets into his car. The young man rushes over to her, demanding to know what's going on. She confesses that she is married to the man, and the young man's jaw drops in shock. The bride sits beside her husband in the car, a look of playful innocence on her face. He asks her if she was really asleep the whole time. She nods, her act unwavering. He watches her, a hint of a smile on his face as he accuses her of lying. She giggles, then asks him if he saw someone who looked like her. He falls silent, and she takes off his sunglasses. A look of mock seriousness on her face as she reminds him he's blind. He takes them back, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Later, they arrive at her adoptive family's house. The parents greet them with false smiles, but the moment the husband is out of earshot, the mother pulls the bride aside, her voice a greedy whisper. She tells her to bring any gifts from the husband's family back to them. The bride agrees, her own smile just as false. In the car on the way home, the husband asks what her mother said. She tells him, her voice dripping with mock innocence. He asks if she will do it, and she scoffs, declaring that what's hers is hers. He looks at her, a slow smile spreading across his face, as he realizes she's not as simple as she seems.